Blazzzin Sportscast back for another episode. Tons of stuff to get to today. What up, Bearded Grinch?
What's going on, Mike? How are you, man? Crazy
well.
week. I don't care what sport you're a fan of. There's been stuff going on left and right. If you're a card person, if you're a sports guy, there's been a lot happening. Playoff football, obviously, we're going to get into that and talk about it. In the world of NBA, there's a star emerging amongst us. I think if there's a debate, Zion versus Ja, that's being put to bed just by the performance of the court. Ja Morant put up probably one of the greatest blocks I've seen in the history of the NBA. Man looked like he got 20 feet off the ground. Unbelievable. He's, emerging there as a star. Great to see for the sport there. Someone taking some shine off of LeBron. Just awesome stuff happening. But, there's also been some, sports world is not without controversy. So we've had a little bit of controversy in the card world as well. So just a crazy week all around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sports are just awesome, aren't they? Let's just stop for a minute and think where, we had sports very briefly ripped out from under us, 2 years ago when this COVID thing hit. And man, we were talking about doing Roomba pool on a pool table, and we were betting on marble racing and what would we be without sports? I mean, this is the Blazzzin Sportscast. I mean, it is so much of us, and it can be good and it can be bad. It brings out the best of us and the worst of us. But what a beautiful thing it is. The competition, the love for our athletes and our team. It's just an awesome thing.
Yeah, what really solidifies it for me is even when your team's out of it, obviously my Ravens, their season is done. We're already onward looking forward to next year and hopefully getting some players back from injury. But, I mean, playoff football is one of the greatest times of the year. I'm actually looking forward to no pressure off, just watching some really great games, seeing who can emerge. And if any year in the NFL, this is one of those years where I really think there's probably 7 or 8 different teams in the mix, and it's hard to tell which one's going to, rise to the top. So it's just an exciting time for sports all around.
Yep. Very exciting. Well, you talk about a little bit of controversy, which sports are riddled with that as well, from referee controversy to, a whole bunch of, off the field player instances. But this week in the sports card world, just yesterday, we had quite a controversy. We're not going to name any breakers or stuff. I'm sure many of you know who it is, but a lot of breakers try to do giveaways and do special things to promote their groups. Yesterday, it backfired on someone in a way they didn't feel good about. They gave away a box of Absolute Hobby, which sounds like a great giveaway, until you pull the card that everyone wants out of that Absolute box, which was a Trevor Lawrence Kaboom out of 10 gold, between a $20,000 and $25,000 card, roughly, give or take. And they decided that card was just too expensive to give away. Chris, go ahead. Hit me with your initial thoughts on that.
No, I mean, so what I would say from this, and again, we're about positivity on the show, so we won't dwell on it too much. But I think if anything else, this just kind of serves as a PSA announcement for people that are getting into breaking. If it's something that you've been doing for a while, or if you're looking to start, getting into breaks, this is just a cautionary tale of make sure you do your research, right? You got to kind of do it on your own. Don't listen to the hype that other people bring. Watch some breaks, check out pricing, do all these things. But with this instance, I mean, I think what it does is it just shows the core character of the person, right? If you do that and your initial thought is you pull this card and all of a sudden you go from I'm going to do something amazing for my followers to this is too expensive, we have to keep this for our own greed. I mean, that just says a lot about the character of the people. And then you've got all of this followed up with trying to cover it up and backtrack and make things right. And there's still controversy about whether that was even done. They did eventually give the card away, but did they give the card away to one of their buddies to actually keep it? Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of just guessing going on. But what I would say is there's great breakers out there. There's bad breakers out there. And then there's breakers that fall in between. You got to do your research. You got to watch them. You got to check prices. You got to find somebody that you get along. I mean, to me, it's like a friendly community. So that's what draws me towards who I break with is, can I get along with that person? Do I trust that person? But yeah, just a black eye for these guys. And, hopefully they can get it fixed, or at least the people that have been duped by them in the past can kind of see the light and maybe not make the same mistake again.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a public service announcement. And it's so easy to say, for people to point to breakers. And I heard a lot of, this is why breakers stink. Blah, blah, blah. There are good ones and there's bad ones and everything, from religion to, sports athletes to breakers in the hobby. And there are good eggs and bad eggs representing each field. But what I will say is this: it speaks volumes to just integrity and the way you handle yourself. You don't have to be a breaker to have this happen to you. You could be selling cards, and if you have bad integrity off the start, first impressions are huge. This is the first I heard of these guys. Apparently I'm like the only one that's never heard of this group, because they have 200 and some thousand followers. I mean, it's a big group. They apparently, sell out breaks at optimal, extreme high prices, so people must like them. But man, I'll tell you what, if that's the first you heard of them, I don't know how you go to them. And then on top of that, to try to correct it with like fake integrity moves smells worse than just owning it and being like, you know what, that was our mistake. We should have been better. I don't know. It's hard to, hindsight is always 20/20. But again, public service announcement, handle yourself appropriately. Integrity goes a long way. No card is worth your integrity. No amount of money should buy your integrity. And then also break with who you like. Find the good prices, but not only that, be careful. Good prices can come at a cost with bad shipping, with bad, product, bad situations like this. So just be careful. So, but that was not the only person that got scammed this week or ripped off. Logan Paul, this one's a little bit more than 20K. Logan Paul found out that his $3.5 million case of Pokemon cards was fake, filled with, my understanding is I didn't watch the video yet.
G.I. Joe cards. Yeah, they decided. So the initial case was authenticated by one of the, top authenticators in that world that, looks at sealed cases to just identify whether or not it looks like it's been tampered with, and passed all inspection there, was authenticated as legit. Question is what's inside actually legit? So they opened up the case. They automatically noticed there were some potential issues. The shrink wrap around the boxes themselves seemed loose. It wasn't tight like it is on normal hobby boxes. And then they decided just to rip one and see what was inside. They ripped one open. It was filled with G.I. Joe cards. So, it doesn't matter who you are, the average Joe or, a celebrity like Logan Paul. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 card or a $4 million case of cards. It can happen to anybody out there. And again, cautionary tale is just, and this was authenticated. I mean, so now we're trusting these people to authenticate things and say they're legit. And then we come to find out that they're not. So, I mean, you really have to just be careful out there, because greed is just one of those things that makes people do crazy stuff, and it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the scariest thing of this whole thing. Kind of developments on that whole situation is Logan Paul did get his $3.5 million back. There was a deal in place. The person who sold it to him bought it for, I understand, 2.8, sold it to Logan for 3.5. However, there was a deal in place. He had bought it off of someone, the 2.8 million, bought it off someone for 550,000. There was a deal in place for him to also receive his money back. Once Logan Paul was refunded, it sounds like the original guy lawyered up and said, sorry, but you're going to have to lawyer up. I'm not giving you your money back. So now Logan Paul's clear of the situation, but this kind of goes back to these other two guys who are apparently both well-known people in the hobby. Obviously, they should be with what the product they're throwing around there. However, the biggest problem of this is the authentication of these sealed cases becomes an issue. With more technology around, even the duplication of cards and the counterfeiting of cards, but now these cases that can be authenticated but aren't authenticated. No. I don't know, man. It sounds like a train wreck. Hopefully they can get this cleared up and it doesn't put too much of a blemish on the hobby overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to just take the community. I mean, we've got to do community policing. That's probably one of the top ways for us to be able to avoid a lot of these situations. But it just goes to show you that nobody is exempt from it. It can happen anywhere. So just, watch out, take extra caution and make sure you're doing your due diligence and being educated on who you spend your time and your money with. So that's the PSA announcement for today. There'll be more to come as we go. But let's just jump into the meat and why we are here and what gets our juices flowing, especially for you. I know you've got a big game coming up on Saturday. Let's talk some NFL playoff football. So we're going to bring it up here for you guys, just taking a look at how the brackets have laid out. And like I said at the top, I mean, this is one of those years where there are just a handful of teams that could really take this home. It just depends on how the chips fall and where the matchups line. So let's just go one by one, kind of get our thoughts on the games and where we see them going. And then at the end of this, we're going to get into a little bit of card talk and see who are some potentials that we could pick up and maybe some investments to get a hold of throughout the playoffs. So first game on the top there, if we look at the AFC, Pittsburgh Steelers falling into just what's probably an improbable situation for them. They had to not only beat the Ravens, which, I mean, that wasn't a huge task to do with as battered and beat up as they were, but they also had to rely on a couple things. We had Tiegate between the Raiders and the Chargers. That game didn't need to end in a tie, which, as you all know, it didn't. And then the improbable Jacksonville Jaguars just demolishing the Colts and ending their season. So Pittsburgh slides in. They get a daunting task having to take on Kansas City at home. I think, to me, as I look at the slate of games, this is probably the easiest decision to make. Barring a miracle, I don't see how Kansas City loses this game. I think it's going to be kind of a runaway they played before earlier in the season. Kansas City took it by over 20 points, I believe. So I see a lot of the same things happening. The only way I see it going differently is if you can force Mahomes into some mistakes, keep him in the pocket, not mobile, and that run game for Pittsburgh just has to, keep that train running and milk the clock as much as possible. But I see Kansas City taking this one pretty easy. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Well, I got to back up for a minute because the whole last week 18, the NFL's coming out looking like genius move, adding in the extra week, rescheduling that Raiders game at the end of the night. And then, of course, the timeout gate, for lack of a better phrase, Raiders players going up to Austin Eckler at the end of the game, letting them know they were going to kneel on the ball. If you've seen that video clip, if you haven't, go watch it. But you can see the Raiders player tell Austin Eckler, we were going to just sit on the ball until, your coach called the timeout. And Austin Eckler looks like he wants to vomit on the field. He's just so heartbroken. But the funniest thing, Muth was on Morning Football this week, and he said that both Tomlin and him had fallen asleep. Well, Tomlin had fallen asleep watching the game because they thought it was over. Someone called Muth. He's like, you watching this game? As one of his relatives is like, yeah, Raiders going to win. Looks good. He's like, no, like Herbert's driving, So it's funny. I love hearing those stories because we forget that these are just dudes after their game, chilling in their house, watching it like we are. We talked at the beginning about how awesome sports are, but we forget sometimes to connect to these athletes as people. They're at home. They're kind of chilling like, all right, they have everything on the line and we're watching more intently than they are sometimes.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's just crazy. But yeah, I'll be honest. I think this is one of the less likely upset specials, but I did put a little wager on it because the odds are so good. I love the little Jedi mind tricks that Ben Roethlisberger pulled this week with, we're what are double digits underdogs. There's no way we don't stand a chance in this game. Let's just go have fun. And then Najee Harris comes out with his little tweet that he's since had to delete, which was, I'm sure he's a rookie. He's younger. He doesn't understand the Jedi mind tricks as someone that's been around as long as Ben Roethlisberger. But you can't sit there and tell me. I mean, it wasn't even like a tongue-in-cheek comment. He said it honestly, Ben Roethlisberger did. So you kind of wonder, was he serious? Was he not? And that's enough to mess with someone. I know that Watt's playing at an optimal level right now. He has yet to have a sack on Mahomes. So they either know how to control him or Watt's just not been let loose yet. Watch out for that. If Watt can frustrate, I think the key to this game is frustrating Mahomes early. And I say that because when the Bills beat the Chiefs earlier at the beginning of the year, that was the number one thing. I said I kind of lost a lot of respect for Mahomes in the Bills-Chiefs game. And someone pointed out he's not used to this frustration. He's had success since he's been in the league. The key to that game is not Ben Roethlisberger. It's not Najee Harris. It is Watt. It is the defense getting after that Chiefs quarterback and frustrating the heck out of Mahomes, getting in Mahomes' head. Again, going back to the people are people, Mahomes has his own situation going on with all the social media stuff with his brother and his wife. If you don't think that weighs on a person, it's not in the back of their head, owners telling them they don't want his brother and wife on the sidelines anymore. And that stuff weighs on you regardless. You can separate it to an extent as a professional athlete, but in the end of the day, there's still people dealing with off the field issues as much as anyone else. They're going to work. This is their job. I think there's a dynamic here that allows the Steelers to just surprise the world and upset the Chiefs. And as a Bills fan, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think Watt is going to have a really great game. In my opinion, I think if you look at Kansas City, the left side of their line with Orlando Brown Jr. is probably their weaker side. I would put Watt on Orlando Brown Jr., and the goal is keeping Mahomes in the pocket. He does his best work when he's on the move, when he's out running. There's also a question about Tyreek Hill. He had, a banged up foot. Is that still going to linger? Where is that going to sit with things? If he's not at his best, does that allow them to double up Tyreek Hill and put a little bit more pressure on Mahomes to use some of his other receivers? What is Williams in the run game going to do against that, Steelers defensive line? So, like I said, I think this is one of the easier games to pick, but would it surprise me if Pittsburgh pulled this out somehow? No. And honestly, just for the Jackson Mahomes effect, I hope that somehow Pittsburgh finds a way to get it done.
Yeah. All right, so let's go on to the next game on your list there. What do you have?
We got New England and Buffalo in what's going to be negative degrees weather there. It's going to almost be a replication of their previous game, although the wind may not be what it was. But I think this is going to be a very similar game when you look at these two teams. I think it's going to come down to Buffalo's ability to stop the New England run game and then New England's ability to stop Josh Allen as a whole, whether it's with his arm or with his legs. He's formidable. I think this is a great game on paper. I think it's going to be a tight game. I told you last week I'm pulling for Buffalo. I hope that they can find a way to get this. I like Josh Allen overall. I think he's just a good dude. Devin Singletary's been playing well and stepping up in the past few weeks. So a spark there in their run game. Hopefully they can start pounding the rock a little bit more. But this isn't going to be a game where Mac Jones wins it. I think Mac Jones is almost irrelevant in this. He just has to not turn the ball over for them to be successful. Their defense has to play the way that they've played all year, and they need to run the ball. But I just don't think it's going to be enough this time. I think Buffalo is going to come out ahead on this one, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there were two games. They picked the full 5 games this morning, Good Morning Football, and the only 2 games that were complete one-sided were the Chiefs game and the Bills game, picking the Bills and the Chiefs to win both those games. I'm not as confident, but here's my concern. I was at the Buffalo New England game in Buffalo that we lost. It was the Wind Bowl. It was in Mac Jones 3 passes. If it were windier, I'd be concerned. The fact that it's just cold, I have confidence that we can pull it out because we have to be able to stop the run. Simple as that. We can't give up more than 150 rushing yards, and we got to stop. We can't give up third down conversions with run and stuff like that. You have to make Mac Jones throw the ball. I say pack the box, make Mac Jones throw it. Let our guys, I know we're out Tre'Davious White, but let our guys do their thing in the back, make him beat us. There could be some deep balls. We could give up some things, but long-term, I think you have to just play it out. That's what scares me the most is the run game. I know there was a little debate this year, a little questioning of McDermott. He let his guys practice inside this week. Well, Bill Belichick made his guys practice outside. Listen, no one in Buffalo is going to be shocked by the temperatures. Right. I mean, maybe some of the younger guys, but those temperatures are going to be shocking to everyone, whether you practice in it this week or not. Practicing in 25-degree temperatures on Wednesday is not going to prepare you to play on 0-degree temperatures on Saturday night. So it's going to be a crazy game. Listen, Buffalo Bills tickets are $30 right now. We had a chance to go. Crazy. We've lost the last 10 games I went to. We had front row playoff tickets. We sold them. There's no way I'm going to test out my theory that we lose every time I go in a playoff game. And I'm certainly not going to do it again in 0-degree temperatures. But man, these guys are tougher than anything else out there. Can you imagine going out there playing 0 degrees?
So yeah, Mike, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to come down to Josh Allen in the end for me. I put my faith in him and trust in him to lead this team. I think he minimizes the turnovers and I'm going to take Buffalo in this one for sure.
Yep, and a lot of things can happen here as far as seeding goes after the wins or losses, So if Steelers beat the Chiefs, we have the Steelers going to the Titans. If the Chiefs win and Bills win, the Chiefs and Bills would play. And then the winner of the next game we're going to talk about, the Raiders and Bengals, would see the Titans. Let's move on to that Raiders and Bengals game. How do you feel about that one? This one has upset special written all over it.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, Bengals are probably coming in as one of the hottest teams, out of this entire group. Burrow's playing at a high level. Jamar Chase, you've got the ground game with Joe Mixon. So I think a lot of people are looking at them to see, can Burrow handle the pressure? Is this the chance that he gets to notch that first playoff victory? But Oakland is not going to lay down. I think Derrick Carr has got some fire underneath him to prove himself. Obviously, they've got all the narratives and the backstory with their head coach and the Henry Ruggs ordeal. So they're going to be fired up. This is one of those, for me, when I look at it, is probably the closest game on paper. And, it's splitting hairs to pick a winner here. I think for some reason, I think the Bengals find a way to pull it out, but I would not be surprised either way.
Yep. And I want to go back real quick and say 2 things. When I say upset special, it's not because I don't think the Bengals are a great team and the Raiders are. It's just one of those games where the Raiders are playing the toughest football that they have all year. I mean, they're coming off of some a miraculous entry into the playoffs. They're fighting for their interim coach. Derrick Carr feels like he has more than anyone to prove in the league, I think. How that all pans out, I don't know. Again, the Bengals are probably the second, hottest team you're talking about league right now as far as in the AFC anyhow. So it's going to be a cool matchup. I love that kicks off our playoff schedule tomorrow at 4:30. I did want to go back also real quick and just talk the lines, just so we know. Right now, the line stands for the Pittsburgh Kansas City game at 12.5. Kansas City. I don't know how I feel about that one. Obviously, I told you I think it's worth taking a little shot at the money line there with Pittsburgh. The Buffalo Bills, New England Patriots is sitting at -4 for Buffalo. I feel very good at Buffalo -4 on that. And then this game is 5.5 Raiders over the Bengals. I feel very good at Raiders +5.5. I agree with you. I think this could come down to a field goal game either way. I think the Bengals probably pull it off, but when you're getting 5.5 for the Raiders, I feel really good about the Raiders there. And I don't endorse any of these picks. You always wager at your own risk, or just if you're doing friendly wagers. But I'm big into like dabbling into this stuff. I don't bet a lot, but those are my picks. I'll happy to be going on record for personally for those. So I just wanted to get that in. We can move on to the next game though. If you want to kick over to the NFC.
Yeah, so we slide over to the NFC. This game is actually pretty intriguing because I would initially say that I don't know that Philly stands a chance against Tampa. If this was last year, I would automatically just move Tampa into that next round. Problem is Tampa's been pretty banged up. They've had issues with receivers. I will never doubt Tom Brady and his ability to get it done. So you couldn't have me put money on Philly in this game. But again, I mean, we're going to say it for multiple games. This is not one that would surprise me if Philly puts up a formidable effort there and really challenges Tampa Bay in this game. I think, again, they've got to do the smart thing. They've got to control the ball. You got to keep, the ball out of Tom Brady's hands as much as possible. You definitely don't want to leave any time on the clock for him to make any kind of comeback towards the end of the game. So you need to be out ahead, pretty significantly going into the fourth quarter, in my opinion. But, I just see Tom terrific getting it done again and moving on. But this is another one of those games where, it's pretty close in my opinion. It could go either way, but I think Tom gets it done.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to sell $120 sweatshirts and $90 T-shirts, you can't lose to the Eagles in the first round of the playoff. The Brady brand dropped yesterday. A lot of talk about that. A lot of Patriots and Bucks fans a little upset, saying, how can the common Joe afford this stuff? Can we get some of your endorsement money to afford this? Taking a little bit of heat, but of course that's to be expected when you put those lines out. I don't think he's catering to the common Joe with his stuff. No. That being said, this is the second highest line of the weekend at 8.5 points. Eagles have a lot to prove here. They feel like they deserve to be in here from the beginning. They've scrapped their way into it. It is not like they had locked it down a week before the end of the season. They got to rest their starters on the last week of the season. That's something nobody expected to see the Eagles do. So they feel like they deserve to be here, different than the Raiders and the Steelers, who kind of snuck in last minute with some help. I don't know, man. Like you said, the Bucks are hurt. They still have so much talent on that team, though, and you never know with Brady. I mean, Brady's just that guy. So I feel like the Bucks sneak this out, but it could be a lot closer than we think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Transitioning now to what I consider for me to be my upset special out of the entire bracket. This is San Francisco at Dallas. I just think San Francisco right now is not a team that anybody necessarily wants to play. They're getting it done in multiple facets. Garoppolo is proving just to be a game manager. He's not necessarily, going to go out there and show you, his statistics or blowing you out of the water, but he does have an X factor, and that's Deebo Samuel, who has played out of his mind as of late. You get Elijah Mitchell in the backfield running the ball. I think there's going to be opportunities there. And then, when he wants to take his shots, they're going to be there. If you look at Diggs over there in the back end for Dallas, I mean, it's either a touchdown or an interception with him. So it's a 50-50 shot when you go deep on him. And we're going to see what Dak does. I mean, Dak's been playing really well. The run game needs to be there for them. Zeke has kind of stepped up his game in the last couple of weeks, but is that going to continue? To me, this is just going to be a knockdown drag out, but I have San Francisco taking this one.
Yeah, I talked about them picking picks this morning on Good Morning Football. 3 out of 4 people picked the Niners to win this. And what scares me the most about this is I think a lot of people anticipated this line to be a little heavier, like 5 or 6. And when it comes out as +3, it gives you pause, big, wait a minute. That feels like maybe, Vegas isn't confident that Niners don't take this. I mean, 3 points is a field goal game. It's in Dallas too, correct?
Yeah, and that's the typical home court advantage, if you will, is that 3 points.
I mean, I don't know. I'll tell you this. It depends what Dak shows up. And before I have all of these Cowboys fans mad, I compare Dak to Josh Allen this year. Although Josh was the number 1 fantasy quarterback, Dak and Josh have been the same quarterback in the sense of which version of that quarterback shows up.
Right.
Is it going to be the Dak that can put up 50 points against, even a subpar team? Or is it going to be the Dak that shows up and can't figure out how to play football anymore? I mean, like, we've seen both versions of that Dak. He's had a great year. Statistically, he's great. So is Josh Allen. But they've both had these moments, and I've watched them both. I had a lot of stock in Dak Prescott in fantasy. Obviously watched Josh Allen as a Bills fan all year. And both times I'm banging my head against the wall. Like, what the heck are these guys doing? They're throwing to nobody. They're throwing these interceptions where they don't have a player around. You can afford to do that against the Pats a little bit because I don't think their offense is as strong. You can't afford that to do that against the Niners. The Niners are a much tougher team than the Pats right now. I'm glad the Bills aren't the team playing the Niners. As a Dallas fan, I'm shaking at this game. I'm like, we got to get out of the first round. We cannot lose in the first round. And I feel like they're the ones up against the ropes, not the Niners. That to me is, outside of the Bills, the most exciting game of the weekend.
Yep, I agree with you. And then the last game in the first round here in the NFC, we've got the Cardinals at Rams. To me, so when I look at all the teams in the playoffs, there's two players to me that emerge having this quote unquote chip on their shoulders and wanting to prove a lot of things. One is Aaron Rodgers. I think given all the heat and everything that's gone on this year, I think he wants to go out and kind of put a middle finger up to everybody in the NFL and win a Super Bowl and shut them down. The other player to me is Matthew Stafford. He has spent year after year suffering on a team that has just been miserable in Detroit. He gets an opportunity to come to a big market team, surrounded himself with great players. And I think he is just going in this game fired up, ready to go. I'm taking the Rams all day in this. I don't believe in Kyler enough to come in with the upset. I think LA's offense is just going to be too powerful. I think their defense is going to step up when needed. And I think Matthew Stafford's got a lot to prove, and I think he's going to prove some doubters wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this game is the battle of the West. We talked about the West being the strongest division in the league, the strongest division from the start of the year, and they proved it. They put 3 teams in the playoffs.
3 teams.
I mean, Rams, Cardinals, and Niners all in there. And Cardinals start the year out strong, kind of fade off. Rams have been battling through injuries all year, especially at the running back position. They've kind of been in and out with those guys, but have the best, probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year, as I do believe that Rodgers is going to pull in the MVP, but I think Kupp wins Offensive Player of the Year. So just what a cool matchup. I think it'd be more exciting if Hopkins was back for the Cards.
Sure.
But they have what they have. So it comes down to quarterback play here. I didn't really understand the Weddle signing for the Rams. Are they hurting that bad on D? That was kind of gave me pause to kind of be like, what's going on with their defense there? But yeah, I think the Rams pull this one out. But I think
what the Weddle signing to me was almost more nostalgic than anything. It would be like if somehow the Ravens had limped into the playoffs and then they signed Mark Ingram. Right. He's just that guy that's the staple of the team that gets them fired up. I think Weddle is that for the Rams. He had been, captain of that team for so long. One of those that just a highly respected player. I think he can solidify that locker room a little bit. Not that they necessarily needed it, but, I think maybe if nothing else, maybe just a moral signing that could be just to get them over the edge. But we'll see how it shakes out. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great slate of games finishing up there on Monday night. So just excited to see how it shakes out and then where these matchups land and what we're going to be looking at for the next round. But let's kind of transition from sports talk into card talk. And we want to stay playoffs. But one of the things I wanted to address with you is, as you look at these games and these matchups, where do you think from a card collector / investor type, there may be some opportunities to find some players in these games that could be some dark horses that could provide you, some value, or maybe players to watch out for, maybe even players to sell before the playoffs even begin. Because, if there's a player that's hot and all of a sudden they lose, that market can drop significantly. So when you look at this kind of slate of games and who's going into this, where are some opportunities you see from a card perspective?
So I'm going to go, what I like to do is my buy low. I'm a huge buy low, sell high. I don't like the buy where you can only increase a little bit. Every year we see players come out of the playoffs. There's one player that comes out of the playoffs like, man, where did he come from? So I'm going to hit just a couple players from not each game, but just around there where I think they could win a round or two. And that's where your short window is of buying and selling, or buying and possibly selling in the offseason as people are hyped the further they go. I'm going to start with my Buffalo Bills. I'm going to say Devin Singletary. All year long, we haven't had a running game the last 3 weeks. Devin Singletary has been tearing up. For the first time, I feel confident that we have a running back that can run the ball. Devin Singletary scored a bunch of touchdowns the last few weeks. If he comes out in the playoffs against the Patriots and has 2 touchdowns and we win, and we happen to have a second-round win, Devin Singletary with maybe two more touchdowns, people start to turn head. Again, you're not going to see, a massive like sale on some of these cards, but you can buy his cards so cheap right now, even if you turn a 30 to 50% profit there. If you're looking to flip, again, this is a flipper mentality. If you're a Bills fan, buy him now. They're not going to probably get cheaper if he has a great run. Another running back in the Raiders game, Josh Jacobs. He's really been picking it up the last couple of weeks. I could see him scoring a few. Also, if you want to stay in that game, Derrick Carr. This guy's never got to play in a playoff game. Yes, he's been in the playoffs before, but he was hurt when they made it. And I forget what year it was, but he hasn't played. If he kind of surprises some people, it could happen. Back to running backs real quick. Kenneth Gainwell for the Eagles. If for some miraculous reason they upset the Bucks, it's probably going to have a little bit to do with that guy right there. So be on the lookout maybe for him to be a rookie you can grab cheap. T. Higgins at wide receiver for the Bengals is one of mine. And then McCole Hardman, where you can buy his pen pals on-card autograph from Elite, which is one of his coolest autographs, I think. Such a neat card, $3.
Jeez, wow. That's insane.
They're my quick hit playoffs. Again, these are long shots. These aren't people I say go spend a fortune on, but you could probably take $50 and get a couple of these guys' autographs and get them shipped to you in the next couple of days and sit on them playoffs and root for those guys, almost like a fantasy aspect. Like, here's my fantasy card lineup. Let's see what happens with these guys.
Yeah, I like it. When I look at this, my mentality is, slightly different. And some of these players I'm going to mention, people are going to be like, obviously, but the reasons behind it, I think, kind of warrant why I would say take a shot if you have the funding to do so. So if I look at kind of some of these games and go around, obviously Najee Harris has an opportunity to solidify himself as the face of that franchise while they're going to be in flux waiting to see who the next quarterback there is in Pittsburgh. If he can come out and run the ball, there's going to be opportunities there for him to kind of be that young stud and star of that team for years to come. I would say watch out in Kansas City, right? So people will buy into the hype and try to pick up some Mahomes stuff. I'm not saying Mahomes isn't a fantastic quarterback. He's not going to finish his career as one of the top quarterbacks, but for his card values, it's almost Super Bowl or bust at this point for him. If he doesn't make it back to and or win the Super Bowl, his card values stay flat, if not drop off. So don't rush out and start scooping up a bunch of Mahomes because the prices are already exorbitantly high. If I look at New England, I think Ramondre Stevens has an opportunity to show out there a little bit. You could see one of those players that's not fantastic, but as far as card values, just increase a little bit there. Obviously, when you talk about Cincinnati, it's the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase show. If those guys come out and they win this first round, you're going to see Joe Burrow prices shoot through the roof. And then, beyond that, if they can make it to, more rounds, it's just going to continue that trend. Not a cheap player to go out and buy by any means right now, but if you can get some of these insert cards that are out there and maybe a PSA 10 that are a little bit lower on the spectrum, something to hold into your pocket. And then if I flip on the other side, I agree with you and Gainwell there in Philly. From a Tampa Bay perspective, why not? They went out and they had to replace Antonio Brown after his fiasco, so they'd pick up John Brown. If John Brown becomes Antonio and, he's that deep threat and he gets targeted by Tom, there's an opportunity there for him. And then if I look at San Francisco, I think Elijah Mitchell and Debo obviously have some opportunity there to prove themselves. They're going to rely heavy on that ground game. And so I think there's going to be some opportunity there. And then Cooper Kupp, you can't say enough about this guy. His prices have crept up steadily over the last few weeks, and I see that continuing to happen. But his stuff is still relatively cheap when you compare it to a quarterback type value in cards that you could go out and pick up some from him. And if he continues to do what he does in the playoffs, then you're going to see some opportunity there.
It's funny you bring up Kupp because I didn't get to my sells, and I only have one really, honestly, and it's Kupp. And it's not because I believe that you need to sell them. It just depends on how far you think the Rams will go. If you feel like the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl and it's because of Kupp, or they're going to get there and because of Kupp, it's worth holding for a little bit. But even if they get there, I would say he is a sell along the way, because we've seen it time and time again that wide receivers struggle to hold long-term high value. Sure. The good thing for him is in 17, there's no 17 to really be ripped. So if you're going to get a Cooper Kupp, it's going to have to be, one that you buy. You're not going to open one out of a pack. But you're right. His prices are fairly cheap. He might be worth buying now. And if you believe the Rams are going to go far, but again, to me, it's a flip during the playoffs. It's a buy now, sell on success.
Yeah, and I would think if history, does anything, it kind of tells the story of all of these players, unless you see them as long-term holds, playoffs are really where they define if you purchase or hold long term, because we saw Mahomes prices even after they won the Super Bowl automatically started to tail off, and then in the offseason they start to bottom out a little bit. And so that's going to be the same with all of these players, and especially to your point, position players. If you're not a QB, historically position players don't hold their value. So you just have to determine when is that team going to exit the playoffs. So your strategy has to be, what are their chances of winning this game? Do I sell now, or do I wait and see if they have a chance of moving to that next round? Because once they're out, then that bottoming out starts to happen. And then you're just either going to have to hold or take a loss, or your profits are going to be just minimalized.
Yep. And again, it's not always about investing. Sometimes if it's your team that's going in, maybe buy some of those guys now. I know I made that mistake with Josh Allen. I had these opportunity to buy Josh Allen. I had a bunch, but I was like, I don't really want to spend that much. I got these much cheaper as they were working through the playoffs the last couple of years. And now, because the whole market has come down a little bit, his cards have come down, and the only real room for him to grow is if they're going to go to the Super Bowl and we see the peak of his cards. So
right.
There's guys like that too, like Josh Allen, maybe Burrow, that his cards are only going to climb if they make it further. But we'll get into our next episode. I want to get into the guys to buy this offseason, guys who didn't make the playoffs, guys who maybe cards trickle down as we go through the playoffs. So we'll take a look at that. Do you have anything else to add to these playoff cards?
No, I mean, I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head. I think now it's just going to be a wait and see how it shakes out. Like I'm sitting on some Burrows, not because I'm a fan of, Cincinnati by any means, just because I see, his potential long-term value, but also are there some, once he gets past this first round, am I going to hold half of what I have and sell the other half just to make some profit? I got to look at strategy there. So, it's what we say certainly isn't going to be gospel. You got to do your own research and make your own decisions. These are just kind of our opinions, and see where it shakes out. So.
Well, then, it's kind of funny because normally we have some cool releases coming out around this time of the year. We've already had a lot that hasn't been out yet. See Prism, see Optic. Those things aren't coming out till Super Bowl time or after a lot of those products. We have a few releases between now and the Super Bowl, but not much. So let's talk about the products that are out right now that will be breaking this first week of playoffs. And most recently, it's Illusions and Mosaic. I can't believe I'm actually going to say this. You could have told me this 3 weeks ago. I would have laughed at you, but I think I like Illusions value better than I like Mosaic. Am I crazy?
You may be. I've yet to have Mosaic in hand. Obviously, been in a few breaks and waiting on those cards to get to me. What I've seen, I can. Let's just say I wouldn't be surprised to hear that from you, just based off of what I've seen from the breaks that I've been in. I mean, the Illusions cards, to me, I think they're an undervalued card. I think it falls in line with Phoenix, to me, as like one of those brands that's just undervalued. Mosaic is Mosaic, right? I mean, from what I've seen out of them, not a lot of change from last year. There are a couple case hit inserts that they've changed around a little bit. The stained glass is no longer stained glass. I think it's called broken glass or something to that effect. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if they just lost license to the name stained glass or if they're just keeping it for other sets. But the cards to me look very similar to last year. The value, in Mosaic product, if basketball is going to tell the tale at all, the value for Mosaic long-term just doesn't hold the way that it maybe has in previous years. The autographs you're getting out of those boxes, I mean, you're not in there trying to scoop up the Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence autographs, because from what I've seen, and this is numbers of cases being broken, they're few and far between. You're obviously in it for the parallels. They're beautiful cards, but if you're just looking from a value perspective, to me, this is a break product all day long. You will not see me going out and buying a box at my hobby shop. I'm going to join in at a break or a mixer to get those. Whereas Illusions, that's a product that I would actually go and take a chance on. If I went to go buy myself a personal, I would go to the shop and buy myself a personal, just because the look of the cards, the price point is a little bit better. So no, I don't disagree with you. What are your thoughts from having it in hand? You've broken a number of both of these products. What are your thoughts on them?
So I don't want to confuse anyone. When I said my statement, I said in value, not in looks. Mosaic is still one of the most gorgeous products Panini puts out. Like you said, the inserts look amazing. I want some of them for my own personal collection, and I'm 100% with you. If I'm buying a box, I'm buying Illusions. If I'm getting in a break, I'm probably getting Mosaic or Illusions for breaks. I think they're both quality break products, but to me, I don't think you're getting the value out of the box of Mosaic. It just came out last year at the peak of the hobby, and it was the first year people were excited. I mean, Sage and Leaf were selling like double of their initial price, so of course Mosaic was going to take off as a new product. The problem for me with Mosaic is that it's such a limited number of numbered cards in a box. We're averaging 3.5 numbered cards per box. And again, beautiful stuff. And the numbered stuff sells very well. The problem is the autos list is very big. People like that. I've talked about this on the show before. People love the big auto list because there's all these good names on there. Just remember, when there's a lot of names, there's a lot of chance you're going to get some of the names you don't like out of it.
Right.
See Taz Surratt. See, I'm thinking of the Colts guy. Either way, there's a lot of names on there that you're like, man, for a $650, $700 box, this is not one of my 2 autos I want out. Now, to be fair, there's cool autos in there too, names we don't get to see often. Heath Miller we've pulled. Derrick Carr we've pulled. We did get a Justin Fields, unfortunately, a redemption. Also, there's points in there, as always, with a lot of these products with Panini. So I just think that the price point has gotten out of control, and it's all a result of what happened last year during the boom with this product and it coming out at the peak of the bubble. And I think next year we need to see this price come down to closer to $350 a box, $300 a box. That's where this product belongs. Unfortunately, right now, that's not ever going to happen because I know what I paid for this product.
Right.
And it just can't happen. It can't. When you pay over $600 a box for it, you can't try to sell it at $500 a box. Unfortunately, people are starting to do that because they can't sit on this and they can't sell it. Breaks are expensive on it. And, I'm not one to get negative. There's a lot of positives of this product. I mean, the cards, I'm telling you, in hand are gorgeous. But Illusions, a lot more numbered cards. The checklist is a little smaller with some still really good names in it, so you can get some of those bigger names easier. And I just feel like with 5 hits per box, you have a lot better chance to get your money back, even if it's with some patch cards. And that's the other thing. Patch cards have definitely made a comeback in the hobby, and we're going to talk about that in a minute when I talk about the card show I was just at. There's a lot of people, new collectors, who love these patch cards, even if the long-term collectors don't, or the long time. And so I feel like Illusions gives you that opportunity to get a couple patch cards, where Mosaic, you're not getting any of those. So there are people that don't like that product because they don't have RPAs. They don't have patch cards. They don't have on-card autographs in there. So that's another thing, the fact that you can't get the on-cards in there. So I'll just say that. I love both releases. I think they're cool. The price point is a little bit high, but we've been talking about that for 2 years now.
Yeah, and it's never going to end. I think you just hit the nail on the head with some of your points, too, as to why I just look at, for me, Mosaic is a great PYT break product, right? To get the chance to get, if you're a Steelers fan, that Heath Miller auto that you may not come across. As a Ravens fan, you've got Justin Tucker autos in there. I mean, so PYT product all the way. But, you made a good point, from releases right now and where things are going. I don't know that we're going to see much relief if you look at the slate of stuff that's still to come. You've got your Select, you've got your Prism, you've got, some of these high-end products, basketball, you're still looking at, National Treasures and things. So if you're waiting for the prices to drop, you're going to be waiting a long time. So just, again, we talk about it all the time. Educate yourself, do your homework. This is going to be a great opportunity to get into some breaks and be able to get your team and get some really nice-looking cards.
And I said that with the Bills. Like, I can't afford to buy some of these numbered cards at the Bills in Mosaic because they do go for a good amount. But the break prices for some of these teams are actually very affordable and they're very reasonable. So I've been in a Bills break, got some of the cards I've wanted. We've opened a lot of cool Bills cards. I mean, again, I was talking to a guy in our group, Calkins, today, and I said the Seahawks are a great buy in this product because by the time you go piece the cards you want out of it, you'll probably hit a good bit of them. The right. Browns in a couple box break are real cheap. We pulled a bunch of Browns like inserts and rookies yesterday. As a Browns PC guy, we have Larry in our group, and it was a nice little pile of cards for the price he gets. And I'm going to transition that into, I did a card show, and you all right if we transition into this?
Yeah, let's do that.
I did like my 4th card show since I got back into the hobby 4 years ago, but I've never sold cards. I've had a couple things out, a couple bigger cards. This most recent one I did was in a high school cafeteria, but it's an annual show. It gets a lot of traction, about 25 to 30 tables. And normally we just break and I sell some packs and boxes and a couple bigger cards. This year I took not my Bills collection, but a lot of my other cards, and I just kind of set them out and let people go through them. And some people laugh because I had rookie Patrick Mahomes sitting next to a Derrick Henry base, optic card. And they're just kind of like, is the price of these boxes? And I said, no, it's just, I put them out there. You ask me, I'll give you a price. And I wanted to be very fair. Our stand was packed the whole time. I gave very fair prices. I tried to beat, eBay comps by like 30 to 40%.
Wow.
Especially on some of that. Some I couldn't when they were $2 cards. But what I was most surprised about the show is how many people actually wanted just numbered cards, basic patch cards. When they pick the higher stuff out, they ask the price. Even on a good price, they were like, yeah, I'll just stick to these. And they would hand me a stack of numbered cards and patch cards. And, I was doing them for $2-3 a piece, some patches $5. I was surprised how cheap some of the autographs were when you look at guys like Akeem Butler. I mean, I had a bunch of him for some reason. And a lot of those sold. I think I bought some of these from you a while ago, when I bought that big collection off you. The guys, I was selling for $2 and $3. Again, not a lot of money, but this is what I'm saying. If you can get to card shows, check out that kind of stuff at stands. Those are cool buys right now, just to like build your collection up. But it was really neat just to interact with people who are really interested in the stuff. I will say this, tons of people buying stuff for repacks.
Oh yeah.
I don't get into a ton of guys that do repacks. I know you've done them before. Speak to your experience a little bit on like these guys who are doing repacks, maybe your experience building them. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so repacks are a little bit interesting. And again, this is going to be, you need to do your homework. I create repacks myself. And I put them out on our page and sell them. And you have to be careful with who you do repacks with. So there's a couple different ways to go about it. So there's individuals that'll do repacks where, and for those, I'm sure everybody's familiar, but a repack basically is you're taking cards that you've already owned or bought, you put them into a mystery bag where the person who's buying it doesn't know the cards that are inside of it, and it's kind of a gamble. You have a fixed price for which you sell that. So let's say you're selling these packs at $200 a piece. And now here's where kind of the different rule of thought comes. So some individuals will sell these repacks and they will have a floor and a ceiling on the repacks. So what that means is, let's say they have 10 packs, each pack is $200. You have an opportunity to hit a card, and the value of that card or multiple cards can be anywhere from the floor, which they can set wherever they want. Let's say they set it at $100, and the ceiling of $500. So you pay $200, you get your pack, it's opened for you. You can get a card's worth $100 all the way up to $500. That's the way that a lot of people tend to do it. That's more for the gambler if you're willing to take the risk but have high reward. The way that I've always done my repacks, and it's a little bit different, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I will have a profit guaranteed pack. So if I have packs and I charge $200 per pack, you are guaranteed to make at least $200 out of that pack, if not more. Now, when I say more, you're not going to get a $500 pack. You may get anywhere from $200 to $300. I may have an extra 20, 30, 40% above your buy-in. Now, people look at that and they're like, well, that's stupid. How do you make any money? Well, for me, I get in breaks. That's what I enjoy doing. So there's times when I've spent $30 on a team and hit a $500-$600 card. My profit's already built in there. So I don't need to make exorbitant amounts of money off of my repacks. I would rather somebody that's buying the product know that they're going to get what they've paid for, and they're going to have, guaranteed return on their investment. It's just the way that I do it. You can go about it any way. I've been in some of the higher dollar, gamble ones where the ceiling's been high and the floor's been low, and I've been burned a couple times. And I've also hit, the highest card out of the repack and doubled, my money on an investment. So again, it's a fun way to do it. I think you're seeing a lot more people do it, especially as hobby boxes are becoming less affordable for the common, quote unquote, common person to just walk into a shop and spend $500 or $600, on a box of cards. You can do a repack product for $50 or $100 and be able to get some cool things and know that you're at least going to have something that you can turn around and sell if you decide to do it.
I want to touch on a couple things you said there, because first you say hobby box prices. I had taken a couple box of Classics H2. They were priced at $150, which is a little bit below markup. They sold before the show started. I only took 3 of them thinking these probably won't sell. And 2 of them sold to a hobby shop owner. And he said, I can sell these in my shop for $200. He goes, because nobody can buy a box of cards under that right now. And they just want to open something. So, I knew he was buying them. He's literally bought them to resell them for $50 more than I sold them to him for. That's part of the problem. Again, it's anybody's choice to buy, if they buy something, what they want to do with it. But that's sad that we can actually do that because there's no options out there. So your option is repacks. I'm going to give you, going back to the beginning with our public service announcement, when we talk about, picking breakers and stuff, here's my tips to you with repacks. Don't buy into repacks till you watch a bunch of them get open or a few of them get open. Make sure you know or can know someone who knows someone that got into these repacks, because here's what people will do. They will have guys set up that buy a pack and they open these banger packs, and those packs never leave that house. Right. It is a setup. They have packs flagged. They have them earmarked. They pull that pack. So trust the system of these repacks. And then also just make sure that, just like anything, it's a risk. They can't pack everything. Most people can't pack. Like, I know, Chris, you do profit guaranteed. Most people, what they do is they have these really good ones and they have these really crappy ones. Be careful on those. There's a chance that you're going to get your chase card, as opposed to getting that median line. So it depends what you want to do, but just make sure you really have a shot at those chase cards and that it's not, that the people you're doing that with. But yeah, great way to get cards without buying a hobby box, since hobby boxes have become more expensive. I do want to give just some really quick things I learned from the card show. If you're ever going to do one, know your price. If you want to be successful at a card show, my experience, why I felt like I had dealers are asking even me, how, a couple people ask, how are you moving so much? Well, you can't price your cards at comp and expect to sell a ton of stuff. You might sell stuff here and there. You have to be willing to let some of your cards go a decent level below comps if you truly want to sell. If you're not in a need to sell and you're just there to show off your cards, which I'll get to that in a minute, then price them how you feel comfortable. I let go of a few things. I'm like, why did I sell that? I bought that Brady Raw card off of you, that Air Marshall's 9.5 that had a Beckett Raw grade. I sold it for less than I paid for. I'm like, why? A guy had picked out a bunch of stuff, and I felt like I needed to do that to show good faith in the deal. He had bought like $300 worth of stuff, so I kind of threw it in a little bit cheaper than I wanted to. I let some cards go, like some Cooper Cups go cheaper than I wanted, but you have to be willing to part with some things and not be too upset about it. So know what you want to sell. Don't let go of anything you don't want to, but if it's not something you're tied to, price it to move. That's why you're there. That's why you go to a show. Unless you're like the guy that was at the show who had a bunch of cool stuff, like a Brady Gronk dual auto, had some interest in from some serious buyers and said, oh, it's not for sale. Then get it out of your case. It's not show and tell. And if it is show and tell, just display it behind you and be like, not for sale, but to put it in there and then have guys come and be interested and be like, sorry, I'm not wanting to get rid of it. You look like a fool. It's not show and tell. This isn't first grade morning.
No, that's an ego move.
Yep. And so that bothers me. So put out what you're willing to sell. Know your prices, which I'm telling you, I'm preaching this stuff to me. I did not this stuff to myself. I did not know my prices on a lot, and it wasted a lot of time. I had to comp a lot, and most surprisingly, because some of the stuff I didn't want to rip them off on. See Intergalactic score case at Dak Prescott, which last time I comped it was in the 70 to 90 range. It's a $15 card now. So thank God I didn't look like an idiot saying I want $40-$50 for that. Yeah. When in reality, that was another card. I didn't really want to sell it. He wanted it. It comped at 15. I gave, it comped at like 20, gave it to him for 15. So there, know what your prices are. You'll save a lot of time. And then the other thing is have variety. If you only put out your premium stuff, you're going to miss out on a whole bunch of guys. So have some numbered cards, have some, have your stuff organized with like patch cards, auto cards, maybe a cheat box for people who are just looking for dollar hits. So be organized. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I learned personally from the show, how I would do things differently next time. And then I had a lot of fun. People, you talk about repacks. We did some grab bags with just some common cards in it. Like,
that's fun.
And people, I sold everyone had a hat of my sister make a few more because they were $1 or $2. It probably gave, probably $5-6 worth of cards, but it was the only way these people could get those cards because no one brought common cards to the show. So that was another thing. I think we're missing some of those fun hobby things. One final quick note, man, I'll tell you what, after doing that show, I haven't been as excited about cards as I have in a long time.
Yeah.
It brought back so much of my love for the hobby, so much of my love to see some of my cards in my collection. If you get a chance to go to a show, travel 2-3 hours, go to it. Even if you're just going to go look around and enjoy the environment, we're so stuck on these breaks and the frustration. We see these message board and these internet trolls and this negativity, and it makes you kind of despise the hobby a little bit because there's so much hate and negativity. My positive note to kind of close this out on is find a way to love the hobby again. Just going through my cards, preparing for the show got me excited. Get your cards out, get off the message boards, enjoy your cards, find some stuff you forgot you had, find a way to reorganize, find a way to love the hobby again right now as it gets more expensive and more negative. Just find a way to really enjoy it. That was my biggest takeaway from the show, is loving the hobby again.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's not a lot for me to add in there. I'll just give some quick bullet points from both sides of the table as a seller and a buyer, and we can wrap this up and get into the much anticipated 60-second showdown here. But I would say from a seller's perspective, you hit the nail on the head. Price your cards. If you're not planning on pricing your cards, then you need to put them in a $1 bin, a $3 bin, a $5 bin, where every card in that pile is just a set amount of money. It's going to save yourself a lot of time and headache. If you've got those things already done, and you're going to find those $1, $3, and $5 bins are the ones that people go to the most. Do not overprice your product. Price it to negotiate. Know that you're going to negotiate. And so you're going to have to come down off your prices. And if you're not willing to come down off your prices, there may be some buyers out there for you, but just know that you're probably not going to move a whole lot of things. If I flip it over to the other side of the table, card shows can be very overwhelming. You've been to the Nationals several times, so you can, firsthand, that's a monster show. But even your local shows can get a little overwhelming when you've got 50 or 70 tables set up. So I would say go in with your budget, know how much money you have to spend. Don't reach for something if you think that it's, priced too high. On the buyer side, negotiate, never take the first offer, and then know what you're looking for. Have a sort of a hit list of the cards and things that you're going after, because what can happen real easy is you can go in with a set budget looking for specific something, and something else might catch your eye, and then you blow half of your budget on it, not realizing that, that's not really why you came there for the first place. So, but, card shows, awesome experience, great way to kind of, to your point, just kind of, you reinvigorate your love for the hobby, and you're around so many other people that just share that same passion. And that's what gets excited for me. So good stuff, man. Go to your local card shows. Before we go in,
because Wes Norton would be devastated if I mentioned all these releases and I didn't touch baseball releases. I got to say something when I talk about my love for the hobby. You all know that I break baseball, but I don't know a ton about it. And I break it just to kind of like stay involved in all sports. I have grown to love baseball more and more thanks to Wes and some of our baseball guys who continue to fill our baseball breaks. And I will tell you what, although I understand the love for Bowman Draft and the value there and the big dollar cards, Bowman's Best is one of the coolest products I have opened in a long time, from its cracked ice atomic, vibe to just the number of names, the variation of autographs, the on-card autographs in it, the volume of numbered cards in it. And I will tell you, if I was to collect a baseball product ever, it would have to be Bowman's Best. And I will say the one thing, if Fanatics does eventually take over, they bought Topps, if they do take over Panini or get the basketball and football license as projected and expected, I hope that they do a Bowman's Best for football, because it may become my favorite product of football. It has my love for Optic mixed with the kind of like my love for Prism. It is one of the coolest products out there. If you haven't seen any Bowman's Best baseball, check it out. Awesome product. So that's I have to get some baseball in there. I also opened up NBA Hoops. NBA Hoops is actually affordable somewhat this year. Some really nice stuff. They do the red back, which I love, on very rare hits, kind of like the Aqueous test for Score Football. The autos have been actually pretty decent out of it. Some really cool inserts. So I didn't want to touch on our releases without at least hitting, we aren't just a football site. We are a sports site. So again, Bowman's Best Hoops, very cool, very affordable for what they are. So check that stuff out if you haven't.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of people share your same sentiment about Bowman's Best, and I have seen like the cards that look like they're half burnt on either side. To me, that's one of the coolest inserts.
Yes,
out there. That's just a really, really cool way to do it. Heat waves, good stuff. And there are, again, more releases to come. We've got some more UFC coming out, and I'll say this: I've said it in a couple different chats that I've had with people offline. To me, 2022 is going to be the year of hockey and soccer. If you don't know about it, it's worth dabbling into it. World Cup coming up. Hockey is just on the rise. So maybe familiarize yourself with those sports and see where it goes. But without further ado, we're coming towards the end of the show here, but we'd be remiss if we didn't get into our 60-second showdown. For those of you who are just joining us new, this is an opportunity for Mike and I to go head-to-head on a couple different topics. Again, doesn't necessarily reflect our opinions, but we have chosen to take sides and just kind of give our pros and cons argument for either side. We'd love to hear your input. Whether you're watching on YouTube, put a comment below, on our Facebook pages, on listening to it on Spotify or Apple, whichever way you get and consume. We'd love to hear from you and see what your thoughts are. So without further ado, let's jump into our 60-second showdown. All right, Mike, 60-second showdown, coming hot and heavy. As we've done last...
Can I do my preface here, Chris, real quick?
You can.
All right, just remember, part of this is us arguing our points like lawyers. We don't always necessarily believe in what we're arguing, but we're going to pick a side. So that's our job in this segment. So for the case today, we both kind of, I think, do believe in the side we're arguing, but that's not always the case. We can actually try to argue points we do agree about. So just throwing that out there as a little, caution thing. So you're not like, Mike said this, right, and remember, now you're going back. No, this is null and void of all record. I'm just arguing a point. So
all right. So like we did last week, we're going to tackle one card subject, one kind of pop culture, everyday subject. So I'm excited about both of these. But the first one out of the gates is going to be our card topic. This is one that's been debated for years and probably will continue to, and that's BGS versus PSA. Now, caveat, we're not saying that any other grading companies aren't good. There's plenty of great grading companies. As with everything, do your homework, do what you like best. But for the sake of this segment, we are toe-to-toe, head-to-head, BGS versus PSA. Mike's taking on BGS. I'm going to fight for PSA, and we'll see who comes out on top. So
I'm going to defer to you since I went first last time. I'm going to give you a shot.
All right. You got the timer on?
No, I don't have the timer. You got one there?
Okay. I got a timer. We'll go 60 seconds in. This is my spiel on PSA. So I will go ahead and get rolling on this and see how we shakes out. All right. Here we go. So for me, pretty obvious with PSA, if you're looking to go towards what is the, Mount Rushmore of grading companies, PSA is going to be at the top. This is a value game as much as it is a collector's game. If you're looking for peak and premium value, you can't find it any higher than a PSA 10. With the caveat of a BGS 9 black label, a BGS 10 black label, but I would challenge you to try to find one of those in your average person's collections. They're few and far between. PSA 10s are out there. Going to hear a lot of flack from people talking about the length of time it takes to get your cards back and the grading and things. I'll say this, PSA, you don't pay up front for grading, right? So you submit your cards, they're not charging you until your cards are ready to be received back. So that money is still floating around while you wait a couple months to be able to get that money back. They have opened up their $100 value now, so you can get cards in at an express a little bit faster. So they're starting to see those things. And I just think from an overall value perspective, if you're one of those people that's flipping your cards or long-term investment, PSA is number one. They're the tops. I don't see them going anywhere. And then final thought is just from a pure perspective of keeping my cards together, they're a thinner slab. They fit nice into, my slab holders. I can fit more into a slab holder. So I go PSA.
All right. Are you ready for my BGS argument?
I'm ready for your BGS argument. I'm sure it's going to be great. I feel like my PSA needed a little bit more of a PSA, but
all right. Well, here we go. I'm actually going to argue for you. You're right. PSA is probably the best. We live in a generation that loves free stuff, like free 10s. Here, you get a 10, you get a 10. And just like politics, where the money's controlled by the top, so is the PSA grades. Why wouldn't PSA be the most valuable? All the money's been invested in it. They're not going to ever admit that any other grading service is good because all the wealthy card collectors own PSA 10s because they were handed them. We love free money. We love free things that we don't have to work for. That's why PSA is awesome. Hand me a 10. You get a 10. You get a 10 the most because the money says it is. And just like most things with where the money comes from, there's no accountability. I don't know why I got a 10. There's no subgrades. See Beckett. Awesome. I know why my card got a 10. Also, they don't just give it out. You have to earn it. You have to send it in there. There's also half grades. So if I didn't get a 10, I don't just go down to a 9. I get a 9.5 because I earned the 9.5. My corners may not have been as sharp. They may not have this. No, just take a 10. We'll give you a 10. It's worth more. I mean, there's my minute.
I got to be honest. I can't argue with anything that you said there. To me, subgrades are becoming more and more important in my personal collection because I want to know why my card graded a certain way. So I can't argue with it. I mean, you might have actually swayed me into saying, like, listen, PSA prices are going to be PSA prices and the value is going to be the value. But from a collector standpoint, I mean, I like the subgrades. I like knowing what my card really it looks like and why it got what it got, as opposed to just what I think subjectively someone decided to give a card one day. So
I am going to say, to argue for PSA real quick, I don't like the labels because they're kind of boring to me as a collector. But as if I'm going to do all my grading, I'm going to do a ton of grading. PSA is neat. It's clean. It's the white label. It's easy to read. And why wouldn't you grade it? It's definitely top dog in sales. There's no arguing that. But why? I think down the road, as grading progresses and everyone's sending in and as PSA opens back up, ultimately it's going to come down to pop count either way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just becomes a question of what's the pop count of Beckett 10s versus PSA 10s. Does lower pop counts, because we're going to have a higher count from PSA because they grade more, but does it start to maybe sway people say, everyone and their brother has a John Morant Mosaic rookie graded 10 from PSA because there's 40,000 of them. There's only 1,500 of them over at Beckett. Maybe I'd rather have that just based on pure, supply and demand. It's a more exclusive card. But again, I think time will tell. Right now, PSA is the way to go. I mean, if you're looking for money, it's just I don't get it. I don't.
I agree. So we can agree that we'll agree and disagree on both points for either side. So I don't know if any of us won on that one because you swayed me over to some BGS, and I think, the PSA value conversation is always going to be there. But let's just get into more important topics then, because you and I are both foodies. We like our food. It's no joke. You can see proof is in the pudding that food is near and dear to my heart. So I thought let's just kind of settle the great debate. And this is one that kind of gets put out there all the time, whether you're hanging out with buddies, whether you're married, whether you're dating. Let's go out to dinner. What do you want for dinner? And the great debate always comes down to Mexican versus Italian, right? That's one of the two ways that people typically go. So we're going to go Mexican versus Italian. What is the best cuisine?
And I'm going to tell you don't stand a chance because I'm intermittent fasting. And and I'm still on my fast right now. And when you go to the grocery store hungry and like everything looks good, you convince yourself you need a can of anchovies. My argument may be the most valid argument for Mexican you're ever going to hear because I'm just that hungry. I'm probably going to salivate a little bit. So if I sound like my mouth is like, macaroni in a pot. Yeah, that's probably why I'm on my fast right now.
I like it. Well, then don't hesitate in getting started. Let's go hear your argument for why is Mexican the preferred cuisine. When you're ready, go for it.
I'm just going to start listing some things. You ready?
Yeah.
Tacos, burritos, salsa, guacamole. All right. Those are just some of the extra things that go on there. Hot sauce, enchiladas, chalupas. Like you can go from Taco Bell to authentic Mexican and you're always going to like it. I heard an argument yesterday that when you can go to Taco Bell at 2 a.m. and see a $60,000 Mercedes sitting in front of a Cavalier that never had an oil change, sitting in front of a moped with 3 people on it, because everybody loves Mexican food. It's so good. You can dip it in you can put sour cream on it. You can make it as hot as you want, as, saucy as you want. It just, oh man, it comes out on, you can get the dishes that come out on the skillet that's smoking hot and steaming. My goodness, can't find something wrong with Mexican. Even bad Mexican is good, Plus, I feel good after I eat Mexican. Italian food, I'm laggy, I'm slow. It's the pasta. Give me Mexican all day. That's my time.
That's your time, and that was a good argument. And I think your segue there is perfect because your argument against Italian is where I'm going to pick up starting about why Italian is so great. So I'll take my minute. I'm going to go into it. Here's my take on Italian. So when you think about Italian food, we are in a world that's tumultuous right now. There's nothing more important than comfort. The ultimate comfort food is Italian food. Sitting around the table with friends and family, a nice bottle of wine. You've got the opportunity to make it last and linger. If you look at true Italian meals, they aren't meals that are just consumed in and out. You go to a Mexican place, your food's on the table in 5 minutes. They want you out the door in 10. You go to an Italian restaurant, it's more of an experience. You get the opportunity to sit and conversate and be a part of people. You look at the food options that you have there. Pizza, I don't care if you argue that it's not Italian. It's Italian, and pizza is the greatest food ever made. So you can't argue pizza. You can put everything you want on a pizza. If you're looking for healthy options, you can do your, lasagna type stuff, but you can do an eggplant parmesan, something a little lighter, something a little nicer. Italian's versatile. And then my final thing is if you go to a restaurant, what do you want? An endless thing of just cheesy, stale chips, or do you want endless breadsticks and salad and soup? Done.
Dude, you pulled out the pizza cheat code. I don't know if I'm accepting the cheat code. And like you call out the stale chips like there's not stale breadsticks. I mean, you ever come out with a fresh, hot tortillas with your spicy salsa and your restaurant style cantina salsa? Come on, man. You pulled the pizza cheat code. You can't use pizza. That's cheating.
Yeah, well, I knew I was going to get flack for that one, and people are going to argue whether it's Italian or not, but it is the cheat code. I will give you this, though. So I'm not a wine drinker. I'm more of a beer drinker, so nothing better than a cold Corona or Dos Equis with a nice, sizzling hot chicken fajita plate. So
yeah. No, you're right.
Listen, this one's hard to win.
Salad and breadsticks at the Olive Garden are one of my favorite Italian dishes. So
that's like saying seafood's better because I can go and get the cheddar biscuits at a Red Lobster and eat, fake crab meat. But the cheddar biscuits are what does it. I
mean, I use Taco Bell. I guess that's the equivalent of the cheat code to pizza but
Taco
dude,
Bell's
the 60-second showdown is where it's at. Now I can't eat until like 1:00 today. I don't know what I'm going to do. My stomach is rumbling already.
I'm going to go have a chicken fajita wrap that's sitting in my refrigerator.
You're really going to go Mexican after that argument for Italian?
Well, I don't have the Italian one, but I will tell you this is off the topic find for you, because I know you're kind of being health conscious, if they have those, because I'm doing the same, because I'm the fattest I've ever been with the COVID and the shoulder surgery and everything. There's a place called Long Life Meal Prep, and they prep all of your meals already for you. And I do wraps because they're easy. I can throw it in the microwave, it heats it up, and then I can take it with me. They have all of the calories, or 500 calories or less. They've got your protein, your carbohydrates, everything all broken down. Quick, simple. They have them all over the country, not necessarily that name brand, but just, places like that. It's really super easy for people like, trying to watch their weight and don't want to have to think about it.
I think you need to reach out to them, let them know about this podcast, and see if we can get some promotions up in this piece, man.
I like it.
We got to delete that segment. That's not a paid promo. So
good stuff.
All right, guys. Thanks for enjoying our time together here. Chris, thanks for putting it together. I'm so pumped for the game starting tomorrow. We have Saturday, Sunday, Monday football again. It's been weeks since we had that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And we're expecting, 7 or 8 inches of snow and or ice here for North Carolina. It's going to shut us down. So perfect time to get a warm bowl of spaghetti, a nice Chianti, and watch some football games.
Chianti. All right, y'all. You have a great week and enjoy the games. Good luck to your teams, unless you're a Pats fan. I'm not wishing you anything.
No, Go Bills.
Go Bills.
See you, bud.